We are live. We are live. For now, we're alive, my friends. How is everybody during this crisis? Is it spooky or what? Let's get down to it tonight. Wherever you are, greetings from the Stash YouTube channel, building followers every day. This will be one of the hot spots of the internet. Is everybody on lockdown? Oh, I lost a viewer already. So tonight's topic is the atomic bomb, the A-bomb, the occult nature of the A-bomb. Peaks featured Lynch and Dave Frost's atomic bomb that was a pivotal part of the second part of Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks: The Return, which was interesting. I personally liked the first one a lot better, but certainly the Twin Peaks: The Return 25 years later was loaded with even more esoteric stuff. Now that's why I put a teeny bit, of course, poorly filmed or whatever, bit of it on my channel, because to get the mood going. That is the scene, or one of the scenes of the atomic bomb. I don't think I'm the first to comment on this, but if you've read a couple of the extremely weird, who was said to have revealed too many of the secrets of the Order of the OTO, the OTO, of which Jack Parsons was a legit rocket scientist of the JPL and a legit sorcerer. I have done many YouTube weird things of him. I will leave again in the liner notes one of Parsons. Hope I don't get to the point too slowly, but Jack Parsons, again, was not only a rocket scientist who was worthy enough to get a crater named after him at the moon, was also, again, an accomplished occultist. He performed the Babylon working, the manifestation of Babylon, so along with Hubbard. L. Ron Hubbard, who was not just the head of Scientology, he was also a knowledgeable occult master himself. Now, the magical quote unquote, the magical revival of the current, indefinitely older than which informed the aeons of Isis, Osiris, and Horus, had its reflux in the scientific and political revolution that erupted around 1945 with the first atomic explosion. It was this explosion and the test leading up to it that ruptured the subtle membrane of the Earth's magnetic atmosphere. There occurred a massing of the shades, and 2 years later, there swarmed through the result of the forces that are alluded to as the UFO ET sightings, for which more than 40 years later, there has been no adequate explanation that has been proposed by scientists or governments on this earth. So again, they did the atomic bomb explosion. It was this explosion and this test leading up to it that ruptured the subtle membrane of the Earth's magnetic atmosphere. There occurred then a massing of the shades. Fascinating. Give me one moment. Sorry about that. I must go over this text again. So this was known as in the OTO order, Oriental Templar Orientalis, or OTO. Forgive me if I pronounced that wrong. They refer to magical time periods as aeons. So there's the aeon of Isis, the aeon of Osiris, and the aeon of Horus. We are, I believe, currently in the aeon of Horus. But there are other aeons, such as the aeon of Mat, which is the world between sense and nonsense. So, now, this is Grant's take on this, and also, as you've seen in some of my other YouTubes, and people who are into this know that Crowley said he was in contact with extraterrestrial intelligences. This is an occult observation of the atomic bomb, like this massing of the shades, which could be total fantasy. Grant has often referred to as Lovecraft as being the real deal. That I don't know if you're familiar with the magical tome that came out of the writings of H.P. Lovecraft was the legendary Necronomicon. This is taken by us readers and most people to be ingenious fantasy by the author H.P. Lovecraft, but Grant and some other people are quite convinced that that Lovecraft was onto something, that he was a legitimate adept of magic. As Grant says, whether he knew it or not, Lovecraft was in contact with higher vibrations, with the magical currents. That is my view of this magic stuff, which I've been gabbing a bit too much lately, but this is the series of YouTubes I've been into lately. They tap into a current. They are in the business of using their will and imagination to bend reality to their will. That is sometimes the description of people who are into the Wicca, or this that you're bending the Wicca reeds to your will. And that also involves receiving and sending transmissions to other sides and altering the consciousness and whatnot. But for the purposes of this YouTube, it's definitely interesting to note that the Twin Peaks quite possibly, tapped into this theory that the atomic bomb ripped a hole into the void, letting in the case of that story, evil, because the next scene with the tall man and the singing woman, or the woman, is they observe that the light comes from his, I don't know, his pineal gland or whatever, or his, he's a, the tall giant guy. I don't know if you've seen that scene. And then now this is also interesting. You see this stream of energy, almost like plasma like energy, come from the void into this world, and in it is Bob, the guy, the actor with the beard who plays the evil presence throughout the Twin Peaks series. The guy with the beard. I think he was a guy that they found working as as a worker or something, and he was creepy, and they found him or something. I don't know. I don't know if he was a straight out actor. There's a story behind him that's kind of interesting. So that's the interesting thing. That line stands out. It's mentioned in Outside the Circles of Time and Beyond the Mavuuve Zone and in the Magical Revival. So Grant refers to this event a lot. And that ties into some of the other strange YouTubes I was doing about the interpretation of America Mystica, of Occult America by James Shelby Downard. And we note that they referred to the area as Ground Zero. It's the Trinity site. There was the Jumbo, which some speculate, or that Downard speculated that it was Hermeculus. So you're talking about the high magic of the state. Does it exist, or is it just a coincidence? Also, there's another interesting aspect to the scene there, which I'll leave in the liner notes who it was, but there was an internet blogger who was very interesting, who was talking about, now this brings everything into, I was talking about Lam, the entity, the weird ET looking thing that the Crowley had made contact with, Aleister Crowley, Lam. And Crowley cryptically refers to Lam as the egg that you can travel to. So this is an offshoot of the Aeon of Horus, was the Aeon of Mat, which is the time of sense and nonsense. So when the adept is traveling through space and time into the Mavuuve Zone, which the Mavuuve Zone is kind of like a twilight in between. It's a dreamless dream state that you would travel in for protection. You travel in the egg of Lam. So this is getting very weird. Lam is the egg. So this internet blogger just recognized that, that it looked kind of like a sperm or an ectoplasm or an egg that Bob, the evil entity, is traveling from that world into this world. And I think Grant sort of says it was a bit of a mistake to fool around with this atomic bomb magic, if you will. You'll find tirelessly that any vlog or internet thing will refer constantly and tirelessly to Arthur C. Clarke's line about magic, is indistinguishable between science When it becomes figured out and known, it's science. I would argue that kind of both things exist. Um, so it's as if Bob, the evil guy, he's traveling in a kind of an egg ball. Is this getting too obscure? Good. I just got to get to the point where we're still beyond the Mavuuve Zone. Parsons himself, as a young lad, blew up a bunch of toilets. So he was into mischief at his school. He got kicked out, I believe, his first school. At age 25, he converted to Thelema. That is the willful. He became a Thelemite. Thelemite. That is the will, the religion of the will. He performed the Babylon working with Hubbard. Hubbard's not just a cult leader. He was a spooky sorcerer as well. Keep that in mind. So after they did that Scarlet Woman, again, that Book of Revelation theme that carries through to all these guys very deeply. It's like they're trying to end the world. Very spooky. So soon after Marjorie Cameron arrived, the redhead woman, if you've seen some old pictures, she's the real deal. She means business. As I've said before, she was military intelligence, I believe. Soon after this, so she shows up. Parsons was again a man who was a mix of the scientific and the mystical. There's also another figure of a guy who Frank Manella, I believe you pronounce his name, was another mysterious figure and scientist that was keen on doing side work with Parsons. In the early days, it was argued that, you couldn't take a rocket into space. Parsons disagreed with that. This is interesting to note. Parsons had a clique of presumably men who were interested in science, rocketry, and occult. His clique was known as the Suicide Squad. I didn't know that till recently. So in the Aeon of Horus, he becomes the head of the OTO. Crowley's method for space travel was to go into a trance, and you'd also have a scryer-like Scarlet Woman, Babylon-type woman with him all the time. So he traveled more like the yogis and the swamis. With the aid of his Lam UFO gray entity. So it is the formula is the egg of Lam. Lam serves as a space capsule which conveys the traveler to any desired plane or dimension. He has but to gaze through the eyes of Lam in order to familiar himself with the space scope. So the Magick people, the magicians, must never leave their circle of protection. This is similar, as Crowley says, quote unquote, if he seeks entry into the Mavuuve Zone. Again, the Mavuuve Zone is kind of like a zone between sleep and consciousness. The Twilight Zone, literally. This is when a lot of as Rudolf Steiner says, this is when a lot of the messages from people from the beyond make contact somewhere between the sleep and the waking state. People talk about it all the time. Try it, do it. It's not as easy as you would think. You have to practice. And okay, so anyway, Crowley says, quote unquote, if he seeks entry into the Mavuuve Zone itself, he should be particularly careful not to quit the egg. The work of the egg of Lam. So don't go outside Lam. Lam is the Argo. Lam is the Argo or egg of the space capsule that sails to the Mavuuve Zone beyond the city of the pyramids in the desert of Set. The reason why I'm saying this, my friend, is join me in the Mavuuve Zone. Lam is the Argo. Lam is the Argo. To the Mavuuve Zone beyond the city of the pyramids in the desert of Set. There is a sophisticated occultist guy from England that I haven't seen him on. I had made a 22 tunnels of Set YouTube, and it's interesting. He made a comment that people who are into that now, I would not fool around with that stuff myself, but they practicing the reverse side of the tree of life, of which they travel through the 22 tunnels of Set that are said to contain not only just the typical demons that people make contact with, but ghost and succubus and incubus and things like that. And if you talk about the desert of Set, that you would which this is very funny. How about the back issues of reruns of Mork and Mindy? When Mork, notice he traveled in an egg across space. Perhaps it was the egg of Lam. Whereas Doctor Who traveled in the police call box, right? The TARDIS. There we go, full circle back to the possible connection between Grant's observation of the occult aspects of the atomic bomb. Whether all this is fantasy or not, again, I reiterate my opinion that atomic bomb testing and dropping the atomic bomb have been among the worst mistakes that humanity has ever made, in my opinion. I think that especially all this testing, it's increased the cancer levels. I forget there's a name of a woman that talked about this. It's ridiculous. Not to mention they blew up the entire island of Bikini Atoll and all types of insane. When I was on the river in Oregon, they said they dumped in tons and tons of radioactive waste there. So the idea that in this case, that the scientist who many people think of as a chemicalist, the hermeticism of it, scientist and magic men anyway. The idea is that the explosion of the nuclear bomb broke down the barriers between our world and the Black Lodge of Twin Peaks, which is one of the most intriguing things that Frost and Lynch used in the whole Twin Peaks thing, was that construct of the Black Lodge. So it's not just a detective thing where the local cops and the FBI guy Cooper are working on. It's much vaster than, it's much weirder than that. You see at different times when Cooper is dreaming and he goes into that state. between consciousness and dreaming, he goes to that Black Lodge. And he meets the little guy, and he meets Laura Palmer, who's deceased. The Black Lodge is a Netherland. It's Oz-like. Netherland. It's if you're into YouTube channels like mine or what professional weird ones, that a lot of people will go into how the fairy tales and stories of old are absolutely way beyond just some kids novel. They're imbued, they're loaded with major symbolism of the occult. I mean the Wizard of Oz, the what's the other one with the Netherland, the Cheshire Cat and all that. The names of it escapes me, but their Netherland is a real thing. That the in betweenness, twilight, and a lot of people research and they find that there's a certain hypnotic language, a twilight language, the land of nonness, the Netherland. That's what we're talking about here. So again, we said evil Bob comes through the stream of eggs into this world, which is not the scene that I just put in. That I just put in the part where the bomb goes off. Maybe I'll put the egg part in there. I admit that the activities of the women and the tall man kind of escaped me, but I did not escape me the fact that Bob came through. That was interesting. Through the centuries, sensitive individuals, priests of the dark faiths that inspired the poets of antiquity, have made themselves receptive and available to cosmic impulses and vibrations. By such individuals, the consciousness of humanity has been prepared for the transmissions which we are witnessing, and which some of which are experiencing in the world today. This is from Beyond the. I'm quoting from Beyond the Mavuuve Zone. And also Outside the Circles of Time. Certain figurative elements appear in the works of occultists, folk elements of an extra-dimensional and alien universe. And in the case of Parsons and Marjorie Cameron, they actually went to the Caltech, into the telescope area, and they attempted to copulate and create a moon child. Whether or not they had a kid, I don't know. Did they have Damien? Other people, like the artist Salvador Dali, used sense derangement for specific purposes. Art. It is unknown how Lovecraft did it. Some artists actually immersed themselves, quote unquote, immersed themselves in a superb madness. Lovecraft's dad, I think, his father battled with mental illness, and so did his mother, I believe. Dali deliberately kind of immersed himself into creative delirium. So it's going out, getting incredibly weird, but it's not just that. He also possessed a will and tremendous determination. All these people do. So it's not just that they got high and did art. No, they were at times supremely focused, and some of them say they felt they were in contact with extraterrestrial forces. I've heard that before. They are practicing the art of causing change to occur in conformity of the will. Dream control. Netherland. Lam is the ark. Don't set outside the egg. You fool! The occultists attempt to come in contact with primal vibrations, which the occultists use to evoke the Typhonian energies. That was the Typhonian was the order that one of them that Grant was in. He was the leader of that. I believe that is separate to Crowley. So the reality to Crowley more that's been released. See the book Secret Agent 666, which I'll gab about another night. Crowley it's very very likely that he was involved with the British intelligence. So in the mundane real world, and yet on the side, these men were very obviously known as occultists. It motivated and drove them. And Lovecraft's books are filled with genuine references to real occultism. Oh, and that's what I was going to bring out, that it has been shown by different, David Icke or Jordan Maxwell or different people like this. I'm not saying I buy into every element of what they're talking about, but they have done exhaustive research on how the company logos, for instance, that we all see, that we know are loaded with all kind of symbolism, that symbols leave imprints on the subconscious. They penetrate through any barrier of defense that we have, and that's why we all, every single one of us, buy a bunch of crap that we don't need and things like that. For instance, one of the company symbols way back was one of the channels, I forget which one, might have been NBC. They used to have the peacock with all the eye symbolism, the eyes all over the sea. The peacock was venerated and worshipped by the Yazdi, which are kind of a devilish cult that was very immersed in some dark magic. Magic with a K. The dangers for these seers in occultist is that they are paralyzed by the current of energy they have unwittingly released. That is, the occultist receives vibrations, if you will, from the realm of the unseen, and they go batty. Don't go batty out there. If you're receiving vibrations beyond, try to chill out. It must be noted that very few people have been able to have the willpower not to go completely batty and the discipline to take this art and shape it into something useful. The power of seeing the unseen, the unnoticed, of knowing the unknown, is the supreme gift of art. Apologize, I'm quoting heavily from the Mavuuve Zone. So you have to give Lynch credit. He took these very avant-garde stuff and turned it to a thing. Now, I would have to say film school majors and people take everything, and fans of things like a Twin Peaks or a Matrix. And I have to admit, I'm impressed by it as anybody else. It's very, very enjoyable, but I admit sometimes watching it, I don't think that everything about all those is planned out and imbued with deep symbolism. That is to say, I don't, I don't think so. I think some are and some aren't. And I think that's good. I think that was the great thing that Twin Peaks did for television, is it took some art house and shoved it into regular TV, just like Miami Vice used beautiful colors of Miami and the pastels, and combined with MTV changed also the reality of the viewers. The best thing probably is to watch none of it. Seriously. Because don't forget, you're being programmed and you're being influenced all this. So this ushered in the military-industrial complex, if you will, ushered in the new aeon of nuclear magic. Now, I will say this. We're talking about Parsons. We're talking about guys like Parsons and Hubbard and Crowley. But there's absolutely no doubt there's a superstructure that was done with all these things that sort of gives the idea that they certainly weren't the number one, that there were men of higher knowledge involved in this stuff. Right? Like they had these magical orders. The OTO is said to be inheriting magically speaking, inheriting the legendary Bavarian Illuminati all down. But that doesn't mean that within the superstructure itself, that there wasn't guys who were running those tests, doing those, working with that nuclear technology that arguably were also into this occult stuff. You could say could be true, and that were even more highly placed than these guys who have discussed and written about this. That they are men of even higher intelligence that are unknown. Did I dare just say? Are fans of Crowley outraged? I said that there are some smarter guys, some smarter occultists and scientists that remain unknown. It could be. I just throw that out there. The imagination is the image-making faculty. Maybe we should come on here one night and attempt to contact Lam under lockdown. Certainly the coronavirus is right out of anything that it's right out of any science fiction thing, isn't it? It's a combination of the dead zone. It's just creepy. Combine that with the strange weather, certainly we are making things ready for the old ones. I think probably maybe tomorrow night or Thursday we should go deeper into the Lovecraft Yog Soloft. Do I say that right? Yog Soloft. And I'm definitely, I feel embarrassed that I got too many on Aleister Crowley, but I got that rolling on the Aleister Crowley thing because it's something that we are all familiar with, so it's easy to talk about the beast, talk about Megatheron and his relation to this stuff. But he definitely, that book, Agent 666, is pretty comprehensive. And pretty convincing. I'll be going into that. It was Grindhouse. I'll leave in the liner notes that gentleman who commented on my I do realize that some of these YouTube is not popular that I put up here about the spider, the Spider Queen, which I thought was good. And I had like the background music for this zombie thing or something. The Kabbalah, which is a heavy emanations, and it's a good song. It's a good song that's tied to it, and it's pretty spooky. A really sharp guy did comment that that Grant and the Kabbalists that were dealing with that, they were wrong. They had it reversed. They were doing their Kabbalah, and he said they had it upside down and backwards. Therefore, they got into trouble. I think his name is Tony. I haven't seen him doing one, but he does long lectures out of the UK, Grindhouse. And I think he's an accomplished guy. I think, I mean, he's a, if I could say, he's a dude who's made some money. He looks like he's got a wonderful car collection, and he's a confident dude, and his YouTube channel is worthwhile. I don't know if he's gone on more to do it, but he was making that. Maybe he knew the coronavirus was going to hit, and he's already gone to the bunkers with the elite. But his comments on 22 tunnels of Set are very instructive. That is a grammar, magic book. I prefer just the base, not to sound stupid, or I just like to say the magical tome or something. That's better. Secret book. And what's interesting is if you check out the YouTube channels or Amazon and stuff, there are now people who have broken this stuff down, and it's kind of scary. But it involves vibrations in a certain key. So when you're reading the book or farther than that, actually performing these roles, which I don't know if I'd exactly recommend it as a disclaimer, but as far as I know, I'm one of the first people to try to make an artistic thing out of it, which at its essence, at its core, I guess that's what it's all about. But it was interesting to get. I'll put in the liner notes the one that I did on that. Oh, my point on that is when I found a random picture, there's this robed figure, which is always the very cool or very spooky looking thing of the adept, the Magnus, the magic man with the robe and dark image, kind of giving an idea of a secret society or a high magician or a mystery man or even a monk or a ghost, a undead, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But he's holding an egg. There's a spooky guy. He has the universe, he's either he's a man and his face is scary. It's like looking into the universe, like the woman who takes her face off in Twin Peaks: The Return, and all of a sudden you see the universe in there, In other words, the veil is lifted and you see the void or something. But he's holding an egg. He's holding an egg, which is tonight's theme, I guess. The egg of Lam. I'll go into more detail that, but it's no doubt interesting that Parsons was a connected legit rocket scientist, and it's now proof is beginning to come through that Crowley again was MI6. That's the British intelligence, that he was involved in prime mover, or considers himself the prime mover in an operation to get the Lusitania sunk, thereby getting America into the war with Deutschland. And he had written in an occultist magazine that some of the German occultists thought he was cool. So he ran in those circles. That was his milieu, and that was a good cover for Crowley. And that he may have crossed paths with Sidney Riley, the ace of spies himself. But I'm not on that chapter yet. And yes. Interesting. Lam is the Argo. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that one. I know a lot of cats have done it better than me, but I'm going to go into the if Lovecraft was for real. Of course he wasn't, but yet he was. It's he was a person that obviously was fooling around, referring to himself as a Russian count. And he used his own bullshit, if you will, as probably an excellent cover. The Beast, Megathoron. The dignity which great secrecy confers upon you. I felt bound by the oath. One of the things that book, I'm going into all the good parts already, but Secret Agent 666 goes into is that although he was a bit of a scoundrel and a scumbag and whatnot, at the end of the day, he was faithful to the crown. That is correct. The Beast, Megatheron, was at His Majesty's service. I'm almost talking like Alex Jones when he's stoned tonight. Jones. Is anybody out there? Hello. At least I got one thumbs up. How is everybody? Is everybody in lockdown or whatnot? Or we're going on almost 50 minutes. I think I make these too long so people don't maybe check them out. But if you don't have editing and whatnot, what are these used for? You just put it on and just kind of listen to the guy and fall asleep. It's disrespectful almost not to have these edited and whatnot, but you know what? Maybe less is more. Some of them, by the time you get the guy speaks or goes to his friend, it's like 5 minutes of their theme song, and I don't know, it's cool. And I guess you, if you get into it, you're like, I'm looking forward to the theme song. But sometimes it's like, dude, you're doing the theme song, and it's like taking, I don't know. The magical machine, the vibrations. The goal of the artist and the occultist was to have the planet become impregnated with highly charged particles of alien vibrations. Do we need the aliens to come and help us now? Because it looks like this experiment is getting effed up. Anybody out there? Oh, we're going over 50 minutes. Well, I hope this wasn't too sloppy. Let's just recap. That I've said this thing before. I guess I was mildly obsessed with the idea that the freaking atomic bomb thing definitely connected to the whimsical, in other words, guys like this guy Grant and his master Megatheron Crowley. It's mixed with a lot of imagination and crap, right? But as I've said before, I've noticed in the movies of Lynch that he's just loaded with more than most filmmakers, loaded with esoteric stuff. As he says in And as Frank Herbert, the author, he's quoting, "The sleeper has awakened." That's directly out of this Western magical tradition. But again, to leave you with it, the passage goes as thus. It was this explosion, talking about the A-bomb, and the test leading into it that ruptured the subtle membranes of the Earth's magnetic atmosphere, and then occurred a massing of the shades. How often could you not sleep at night and you're watching Coast to Coast AM and they talk about the shadow people? Are those the shades? Have you seen it? Is it a result of some brain damage? Or have you taken some drugs and then you see the shades? Or has the atomic bomb actually ripped a hole between that world and this world? Incredible. All right, my friends, this was a long one and overdue and overdone, but I said I was going to do this again in more detail. Those of you who have watched the Twin Peaks Return or Twin Peaks 2, episode 8, let me know what you think. Especially, I'd love to hear from anybody who's a film major who really knows what it's all about. That seems to me, though, that certain occultists believed that the atomic bomb, Magick, did something. Ground zero. Of course, there was a ground zero in 911. The Trinity site, that's all symbolic. Truth and Consequences, New Mexico. Believe the bomb was detonated at the 32nd parallel. Let me know what you think in the comments field. God bless everybody out there. Hope everybody is whatever. What do they call it? Social distancing? Yeah. Social the hell distancing out there. Take your vitamin C. Find any herbal alternative to keep your immune systems up. Practice your karate, your tai chi. Do your prayers. Give me some feedback. If you're from the OTO and I've gone too far and revealed your secrets, it's no time for secrets now, my OTO brothers. Let us make contact. We need to know what. We need to know from the beings what the hell to do because it's screwing up down here. God bless you guys. Hope everybody's doing good. Maybe see you tomorrow night. Ciao.